Imagine you're working your 9 to 5, overperforming for a good few weeks, being told that your job is secure and you got nothing to worry about. The next day you're told someone else is going to be taking over your project. And then the day after that, being told that you're actually going to work somewhere else. You have very little time to prepare, but somehow you still perform above expectations. That's basically what happened to the Vikings' current starting quarterback, Josh Dobbs. So far, Josh Dobbs has had a fairly interesting career, starting at being drafted in the 4th round of the 2017 draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he would be for the next couple of seasons as a backup to Ben Roethlisberger. He would only appear in 5 games during this stint with the Steelers, amassing a grand total of 43 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. At the start of the 2019 regular season, he would be traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 5th round pick, due to Mason Rudolph winning the backup position and the Jags needing another quarterback on the roster, with Nick Foles suffering a broken clavicle. Although he didn't end up playing a game for the Jags and was waived in September of 2020. After the Jags waived Dobbs, the Steelers claimed him off waivers and he would only play in the final week of the 2020 season against the Browns, where he went 4 for 5, 2 yards, and 20 rushing yards on 2 attempts. And before the start of the 2021 season, the Steelers would place Dobbs on injured reserve, and they would end up not re-signing him after the season. Now, looking over the next couple years, there is a lot of moving going on for Dobbs. He would sign with the Cleveland Browns early in the 2022 offseason before being waived midway through the season as Deshaun Watson returned from his too short suspension. 2 weeks later, he would be signed to the Lions practice squad, and another 2 weeks after that, the Titans would bring him off the Lions practice squad to their active roster. He would play in the last 2 games of the season, being named the starter for both of those games. First one being Week 17 against the Cowboys. He wouldn't look too bad going 20 of 39, 232 passing yards in his first career touchdown, but he would also throw an interception in their 27-13 loss. And then Week 18 against the Jaguars, he would have a fairly similar stat line in their 20-16 loss, going 20 of 29, 179 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, ending their season as the Jags won the division and preventing the Titans from going to the playoffs. The Titans would not bring Dobbs back for the 2023 season, and he would sign with the Cleveland Browns during the offseason before the Browns traded Dobbs to the Arizona Cardinals, not even a week before the first game of the regular season. The Cardinals would name Dobbs their starter as Kyler Murray was on injured reserve. They would only manage a 1-7 record with Dobbs at the helm, with their one win being an upset over the undefeated Cowboys. This game was a massive shock as the Cowboys had outscored their opponents 70-10 in the previous 2 weeks, and it was the assumption that the Cardinals were tanking. While the record reflects that, the box score shows them keeping it close for most of these games. Through those 8 games, Dobbs managed just under 1,600 passing yards, 11 total touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, before having the wildest week I think I've ever seen for a football player.
So I'm in Arizona last Sunday. We play Baltimore, right? And he says, I'm starting for the Cardinals in Cleveland on Monday. And he says, hey, we're going to start Clayton Tune in Cleveland. Woke up Tuesday morning with a text from my agent saying, hey, you could be traded today. When I had my meeting with JG in Arizona, he looked at me in the face and he said, you're not getting traded, you're not being released, you're going to be here in Arizona. He calls me back at 11. He says, you're getting traded to Minnesota. The last 36 hours, whatever was told to you, something different has happened.
After a close loss to the Baltimore Ravens, Dobbs was told that he would still be the starter against the Browns after that game. Then on Monday, being told that Clayton Tune would actually be named the starter against the Browns, but to not expect to be traded. And finally coming in on Tuesday being told that he might be on the move before the timed deadline, and ending the day being traded to the Minnesota Vikings, who had just lost Kirk Cousins for the season. And they had their second-string quarterback dealing with a back injury. Jaren Hall would be named the starter for their game against the Atlanta Falcons, but Hall would suffer a concussion in the first quarter of the game, thrusting Dobbs into the fire, having taken 0 snaps with the starters during the week, and having to practice his cadence on the sideline as Hall was being helped off the field. With minimal practice with the team and hardly even knowing the playbook, Dobbs managed to lead the Vikings to a 31-28 victory over the Falcons. A funny side note, after the game he said that he couldn't even name most of the players on the roster, which honestly makes this game just a tiny bit more crazy. You spend 5 days with the team, take 0 practice snaps, you don't know the playbook, and hardly even know the names of your teammates. It's wild. The only game I can think of that's crazier than this one was when Baker did something similar with the Rams, where he had 2 days to learn the playbook and led a game-winning drive against the Raiders. On top of that, Dobbs also led the Vikings to a fairly decisive victory against the Saints. Right now, the Vikings have the longest active win streak in the NFL, and a fairly easy schedule leading up to the final 4 weeks. But first, Dobbs and the Vikings have to get past the Broncos, who have a pretty impressive win streak of their own. After that, the Vikings could be looking at their first consecutive playoff appearance since the 2008 and 2009 seasons. Will they manage with Dobbs? Time will tell, but what do you think? I've been Nicol Bolas, and thank you for watching.